This song was written first as a poem by James Weldon Johnson in Jacksonville, Florida, on the occasion of Lincoln's birthday back in 1900. It was so popular that he asked his brother John Roseman Johnson to write music for it. And what they combined on has since become what is known as the Black National Anthem.
Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring. Ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening sky. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of our new day begun. Let us march on till victory is won. God of our weary years, God of our silent tears, Thou who hast brought us thus far on the way, Thou who hast by Thy might led us into the light, keep us forever in the path we pray. Lest our feet stray from the places, our God, where we met Thee. Lest our hearts, drunk with the wine of the world, we forget Thee. Shadowed beneath Thy hand, may we forever stand, true to our God, true to our native land.
Thank you, John and James. Good morning, everyone. I'm Jack Donovan, pastor of the St. Petersburg Unitarian Universalist Church. Welcome to our July 5th Independence Day Sunday service. It is very good to be here with you today. If you're new here, you can find out more about us online at UUStpete.org. We're happy to send you materials, and please feel free to call me if you'd like to talk about our tradition, which is dedicated to the spiritual growth of all souls. We are maintaining the necessary physical distance to move us safely through the pandemic, and in the meantime, trying to do everything we can to stay connected and to support one another. John, James, Allison, and Annie are contributing in word and song to make our service possible this morning. May our gathering this morning add peace and strength to our lives. Some brief announcements. Of course, we're still physical distancing, still tracking the news for hopeful signs. And speaking of news, please check our excellent new UU St. Pete webpage and our e-newsletters, Infonet, and the RE Update. If you want to talk through some things during this time of isolation, I'm available by phone or email and can meet with you at church if you need. Lastly, to keep UU St. Pete strong, please don't forget to send your offerings and pledges. You'll note a white circle in the upper right-hand corner of your screen with the capital letter I for information, or if you will, for investment. That is where you can click and make a donation to the church this morning, and we hope you will. Thank you for your support. I'm going to light our chalice now, or a candle in a semi-chalice. It's our symbol of our search for truth and our shared communion. Join me, if you will, in the words of our covenant. Love is the spirit of this church, and service its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Now, Allison with our invocation.
Good morning. It's good to be with you again, even if it is only virtually. I have on my Sunday go-to-meeting mask, and I hope that you are paying attention to wearing masks. This is our mask basket, and so we have a mask for each and every time we go out because we miss you all, and we really hope to get back together soon, but we all have to do our part. As words to invoke a great spirit in us as Americans today, we recite honored words from the unanimous declaration of the 13 United States of America in Congress on July 4th, 1776, 4 years ago. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all people are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, that when any form of government becomes destructive of those ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute new government, to effect their safety and their happiness. For the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. May the spirit of 76 rise in all of us.
Thank you, Allison. A word to parents who are home with children. It is said that relevantly on July 4th and Independence Day, that civics is no longer taught in schools these days. I'm not really sure about that, but I also raised the question, was it ever really adequately taught in school? And that raises the question of why not teach civics at home? The children's times will require civics as much as do ours. That's really all I want to say to parents this morning. Oh, what is civics? Well, glad you asked. Perhaps call it learning about the work of government and governing, and the work of the citizens in that governance. Ever tell your kids about the first time you voted? That might be something that they'd like to really hear about. Or who you voted for, what parties and why. Or did you ever run for office? And you could tell your children about that. Maybe student council, maybe city council, maybe state legislature. Maybe you've run for president. How about raising the question of, can you run for pater familias or mater familias? Mother of the family, father of the family. Can you run for that office? What's the difference between that and running for mayor? What's the same? Could you get elected as the father or mother in your own household? Worth pondering. It is 4th of July. It is Independence Day, whatever that might mean to you. It is relevant to talk about our forms of governance, and this is a teaching moment. Might it be more meaningful in your household than Christmas is? Possibly it should be. And possibly this is a discussion to have with your children. Your stories of democracy.
These are very hard times for many, but we hope that your well-being and joy have far outweighed sorrow or concern this week, and may our caring extend to all of earthkind. As we begin this new church year, we would like to give our thanks again to everyone who is helping keep our congregation vibrant and meaningful in our lives. And especially, we'd like to thank those who led in so many ways this past church year, and those who will lead us in this coming year. If you don't know who the leaders are on the church board of trustees, the endowment board, and the committees, you can go to the church website and learn with whom to be in touch with your ideas and also with your questions. Our deep sympathies now go out to our children's religious education teacher, Trish Harding, whose sister died 2 weeks ago. And please share in happiness with Danny Skripek, who had a hip replacement surgery about 2 weeks ago and is already joyfully up and walking. Good for you, Danny. Keep going. And now we continue our service with readings. And I'd like to share 2 readings for this morning. The first is from Frederick Douglass, only 100 words from his 10,000-word Independence Day speech in 1852. And it was at the invitation of the ladies of the Rochester, New York Anti-Slavery Sewing Circle Society. And this is what he says. Fellow citizens, pardon me, allow me to ask, why am I called upon to speak here today? What to the American slave is your 4th of July? I answer, a day that reveals to him more than all the other days in the year the gross injustice and cruelty to which he is the constant victim. To him, your celebration is a sham. You boasted liberty, an unholy license. Your denunciations of tyrants, brass-fronted impotence, a thin veil to cover up crimes which would disgrace a nation of savages. For revolting barbarity and shameless hypocrisy, America reigns without a rival. And now a reading from the initiator of the women's movement in the Western world, Unitarian Mary Wollstonecraft, from her 1796 book, A Vindication of the Rights of Women. I do not wish women to have power over men, but over themselves, to point out in what true dignity and human happiness consists, to persuade women to endeavor to acquire strength, both of mind and body, and to convince them that those beings who are only the objects of pity and its kind of love will soon become objects of contempt. Make them free, and they will quickly become wise and virtuous as men become more so. For the improvement must be mutual, or the injustice which one half of the human race are obliged to submit to will retort on their oppressors, and the virtue of men will be worm-eaten by the insect whom he keeps under his feet.
Thank you, Allison. What was Independence Day about on July 4th, 1776? The name suggests it was about independence. Some celebrate being a people of an independent nation. Some celebrate being a nation of independent people. But why were well-off American Englishmen declaring independence from the English government, which maintained the rule of English law? Because the law was not equally applied. Their declaration provided a long list of abuses of governance and usurpation of rights against which years of appeal brought no redress. So they declared the covenant null, necessitating a sovereign people governed only by the consent of those governed, to ensure equal rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Thereafter, the American people were responsible to measure American governance and American life as effected by this new covenant for safety and happiness. And still and always we must ask, have American leaders and the people kept up the agreement, the covenant and pledge of our lives, our fortunes, our sacred honor, to see all people as created equal in our inalienable rights? That, I'd say, is the underlying purpose of our declaration, to establish equality of rights among all people. English Unitarian Mary Wollstonecraft said in 1796 that rights weren't equal for women, and demonstrated it with her writing. Her American Unitarian counterpart, Margaret Fuller, said the same in 1843 for American women. Frederick Douglass in 1852 declared it was even less true for enslaved black Americans. That was long ago. Still, we struggle just to understand the persistence of inequality, never mind the solution. If our covenant is for equality of fundamental life-giving rights, are we aware of unequal treatment between persons and peoples in our nation, unjustified by any measure of human worth or values? Rather a laughable question, really, but it's perhaps too real, and perhaps the necessary starting point to remind ourselves what we know, not only by books and news, but by direct experience. For today, I've started a list of experiences that are a small sample of times that, to me, raise the issue in my own life of people being treated unequally on the basis of color or class. About 40 such personal moments come quickly to mind, actually many more than that, from which I'll draw a few from different stages of my life. And I'm hoping you will go parallel with me in your life. At Concord High School, yes, the Concord High School of Emerson and Thoreau and Hawthorne and the Alcotts, for our required senior thesis on a topic we considered significant, I wrote on the similarities between the Salem witch trials and the McCarthy Red Scare hearings, as illuminated by Arthur Miller's play, The Crucible, political and religious liberty, not a totally naive subject. My best friend wrote his thesis on the question, why do no black families live in Concord? At the time, I had no idea why he thought that was significant. Perhaps only the Unitarian Church to which he belonged was talking about that kind of thing in Concord. But now I know. When my daughter was about kindergarten age, we went one day to hear a folk singer. The lights dimmed. The singer, who was an anthropology professor at the University of Florida in Gainesville, did a song, played a guitar. Then my daughter whispered, "Dad, why is he wearing those clothes and the hat with feathers?" "Because he's a Native American," I said. "Indian, Cherokee." By the end of the song, Bridget slid over onto my lap. "I'm afraid, Dad," she said. "Indians attack cowboys." At her preschool, I'd often seen kids whooping it up playing cowboys and Indians. "Indians are good people," I said to her. "Your great-grandmother was also a Cherokee Indian. You are part Cherokee. It's good. You're lucky." That turned out to be enough. She slid back into her chair, listening mainly with a little smile on her face. And my heart ached at the same time that I was grateful, knowing she didn't yet know the real game. I've lived in other countries for about 3 years in my life. In Mexico City, some college friends and I built homes in the Indian barrios by day, and by night we lived with wealthy Spanish-Mexican families. The two groups were hugely unequal in wealth and power, and seemingly knew nothing about each other's worlds. And that made us think about ourselves and our country. In the islands of Micronesia, we Peace Corps volunteers bore sad witness over 2 years as the manipulations of our own government as the trust territory holder and our military and our corporations doomed a beautiful and bountiful, caring subsistence community to obliteration. In the numerous Vietnamese refugee villages and the orphanages to which I was assigned as a U.S. Foreign Service Development Officer, every day I saw courage and tradition face off against the might of U.S. military forces and missionaries, with many casualties, truth being the first. All people created equal in rights to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. I've yet to see our nation live up to equality of rights at home or abroad, though many dream and work for it. Back home, I remember my mixed-race colleague at the Foreign Language Institute, daughter of a doctor and a social worker, telling of being turned away in childhood by the Brownies and then the Girl Scouts because of her color. I remember Nixon's ban on those of us in the community action agencies, including the one I worked in Boston, from assisting tenants groups in public housing and assisting them to organize as tenants unions. I remember Commander of the Pacific Fleet, Admiral John McCain Sr., whose rule in that area governed Micronesia, where I was a Peace Corps volunteer, getting Congress to ban Peace Corps lawyers from helping island legislatures protect their waters and land. I remember the reports of CIA-arranged assassinations of 2 Pacific Island presidents in Micronesia who prevented basing U.S. nuclear submarines in their islands. I remember the CIA arranged assassinations of thousands of nonpartisan Vietnamese village officials. From college days, I remember a Georgia state trooper stopping me late one night because I was speeding through a little town as I drove my teammates back north after a spring vacation rugby tournament. The officer liked that I thought his unleashed German Shepherd was beautiful, even as it sniffed my car tire for a dead possum. He liked it that we had won the rugby championship. He especially liked that we weren't civil rights protesters. Got a bunch over in the jail, he said. It was 1965. I just smiled, and he waved us on with a kindly, "Drive safely, you hear?" 30 years later, my stepson was returning to UF in Gainesville after he and two black friends spent 2 vacation weeks with us at a lake cottage in North Carolina. The Georgia State Police stopped them. For no reason my stepson could guess other than he was a white guy driving with 2 black guys. Though the police ignored the black young men, they smashed my 6'5" stepson's face hard on the roof of the car before sending them along without citation, explanation, or apology. My stepson's experience reminded me of one night years before when I was running a community action youth center in a South Boston housing project. A police officer came in and called one of my boys out, a 14-year-old Irish street kid who had just gotten out of the hospital after kidney surgery. A minute later, one of the girls came rushing back in and cried, "They're beating Jimmy." I rushed out around the corner to the alley. 3 cops were watching while one kept kicking hard into the boy's kidneys. I knelt down between them, and the officer backed off. Class privilege. Years later, at my first ever UU Sunday service, the minister told a story and concluded from it, we all need a community of courage and caring if we are to survive and have a chance to thrive. I never missed a service after that. And a core group of us had all kinds of discussions that in my memory are characterized by reverence and humility that must attend equality of rights. And who else would have thought of picketing Mitch McConnell's office in 1985? Well, there was also that lovely angry nun who joined us. The year before in San Francisco, I had been among a peaceful group arrested for protesting on ongoing US-funded militia terrorism in Central America. Community trained together, ready for peace together. After 4 days in jail, for those who would not plead nolo contendere, that we would not admit to not contesting the charges, the judge said to us, "You did the right thing, and for punishment, I want you to take CPR training at the Red Cross. Case dismissed." About my arrest, my kindly mom said, "I've been waiting for that." I think she really meant, it's about time. I loved it all. I loved it all, but what if we had been Guatemalan or Nicaraguan or Black Americans? Let me close by affirming that there is hope for equal rights. I've seen it happen on the Gainesville City Commission when I was a member of that commission, and I've seen it on the St. Pete City Council when our church, with the MoveOn.org movement and the League of Women Voters, asked for big money to be taken out of local politics. But it requires constant political action, which requires an active public. Reparation of inequality has a long way to go because it's been going on for so long. But democracy can find ways that work. May we start by renaming the 4th of July Interdependence Day, pledging to the Declaration's fundamental aspiration of equal rights, our lives, our fortunes, our sacred honor. Thanks to Allison and John and James and Annie for bringing our service to life, as I said. Be safe, be well, be good. With that, I blow the flame of our chalice to you as we say our common words of closing. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of love, or the fire of courage. These we carry in our hearts and out into the world. See you soon, I pray. Call if you need some help. Now, music to close.
This great song was written by the late great folk singer from San Francisco, John Fromer. Ready, orchestra? Hit it! We need the Buddhists and the Baptists,
the Quakers and Catholics too,
the atheists and the agnostics,
Muslims and Jews.
We need people of all nations,
all colors and all creeds,
to put an end to war, put an end to greed. Gonna take us all to make a change, take us all to win the peace. Gonna take us all in the streets, gonna take us all, gonna take us all. We need your friends and your neighbors,
the poets and the painters,
the socialists and the anarchists,
the pacifists and the humanists,
every culture and community,
people black and white and brown.
At times we won't see eye to eye, but we stand on common ground. Gonna take us all to make a change, take us all to win the peace. Gonna take us all in the streets, gonna take us all to make a change, all to win the peace, all out in the streets. Gonna take us all, gonna take us all, gonna take us all, gonna take us all.